as communicators, need to be aware that sometimes bosses get promoted beyond their levels of expertise and are not up to the task that they've been promoted into. And so sometimes we can help them do that. Sometimes we have to live with it ourselves. The theory of bureaucracy contained a couple of important concepts. One, we go back to the scalar chain of command. In other words, command would go up and could be broadened to be repeated over the organization so that there were multiple organizations doing the same thing, but they would do it well because they were replications of one another. He also believed in rational decision making. Decisions were made on the basis of what was good for the organization, not emotion, not personal desire, but based on facts and data. And finally, he believed in formal communications, not interpersonal communications, so that the organization should communicate with people, not people with each other. He still didn't believe that there was value in the individuals within the organization. So, in summary, talking about the classical theory and communication, there was a rational method to reduce uncertainty. So taking the emotion, taking the personality out of organizations in favor of a broader, more what we would call organized and rational, data-based approach to making decisions. Relationships between individuals were not important in their thinking, and social, personal messages were discouraged by the classical theorists. Okay, moving on. The human relations school. We see this coming into play in the United States and other Western countries after World War II. I've always thought of it as being the direct response for the people who went away to war, were tested, were given responsibility beyond what they could expect, beyond what their parents had, and primarily those were fathers because women weren't working then. And they came back from the war, and they had experience, they had confidence, they had leadership ability, and they were not going to go back into factories and be cogs in a wheel anymore. In addition, they were going to colleges and going to college in record numbers, helped by the GI Bill. So there was a whole different attitude about the worth of individuals and the confidence of individuals in working in organizations. They were personally motivated, they came back to families, and they wanted a better life for their great sacrifice. And so the personal human relations school came into being, understanding and recognizing this new motivation, the new people who were in organizations. Management had to change attitude and understand that work got accomplished through people, not only on their backs, but with their ideas, their compliance, and their loyalty. This was borne out by some studies called the Hawthorne studies, which happened in Indiana, a Western Electric plant. Western Electric was a precursor to the phone systems and made primarily the equipment that, like telephones and switching equipment, that kind of thing. A group of researchers led by Elton Mayo went into the plant and for a period of about 6 months worked changing different variables in the environment of the plant. They changed the lighting, they changed the temperature of the rooms, they changed when breaks happened, how many breaks there were. They changed even the incentives that people got for doing good work throughout this study. When they gathered all of the information, they looked at it over time, they didn't find any correlation between those changes that they had made, but they did find a correlation with the fact that the people who were being studied produced much more, they had a greater output, they were much more productive than the people who were not being studied. So the conclusion was that people who were paid attention to were more productive, were more involved or more engaged and more valuable at the end of the day to the organization than people who were largely ignored. This led to the conclusion that you should engage your employees, make them feel good about the organization, help them to understand what's going on, talk to them as individuals, and relate to them. And thus we have developed some of the new and more modern applications of human relations activities within organizations. And of course, all of those have large communications components. One of the foremost thinkers in the human relations school was a guy named Douglas McGregor, who said, interestingly, he developed two theories. Theory X was that people came to work and they did the work because they were incentivized to do it, whether by money or by other rewards that they were given. He did some studies with people and he developed a theory Y, which he said people were also incentivized, also worked because they found value in the work itself. He said that people wanted to do good work, do a good job for the basic human value, that it felt good to be a productive, creative person. So we talk about theory X, theory Y, and there's also a theory Z floating out there now. But it's a basic way to approach how you look at individuals and organizations. A sociologist, Abraham Maslow, was thinking about how people worked in organizations and how they developed over time. And we sometimes bring this into the mix as well. Maslow had what he called a hierarchy of needs, starting with basic human survival needs, food, warmth, shelter, going through a series of increasingly social and higher order needs to the point of self-actualization, where one becomes dependent only upon your own convictions, upon your own knowledge, upon the ability to understand what needs to be done without necessarily much input from anybody else. Now, he estimated that about 5% of individuals could reach that stage, and so it's a rare individual who doesn't need or doesn't appreciate the input from others, who knows exactly what has to be done. You know, we might think of some of the Lone Ranger types in American pop culture who are self-actualized because they know exactly what needs to be done. Individuals in real life are more scarce, but we can think of presidents like Ronald Reagan, who knew that he was right and made decisions not based on his the likelihood of his re-election, but upon what needed to be done for the country. Some scientists are like that as well. So we think about the hierarchy of needs as we think about what individuals and organizations need. For example, I would suggest that in an organization you need to make sure that the physiological and the security, those first two steps on the hierarchy, are well in hand or are being accomplished before people will start to listen to the higher order requirements of the organization. In other words, if you have a parking lot that isn't safe, you need to put the lights out there and you need to have a security guard there before people are going to worry about, are they doing a good job for the company? They're going to leave while it's daylight, which doesn't make any sense for anybody, especially in the winter. So you need to worry about, we need to worry about those things and make some estimations of where the majority of people are before we can communicate with them.